Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. Today we are drawing Batgirl, specifically Cassandra Cain Batgirl. And the reason for that is because I felt like not drawing a face today because I've also got a bit of a difficult pose to do otherwise with this. So we're doing a bit of a redesign, a bit of a soft redesign. Again, most of this stuff is kind of the sort of normal elements that you see. I mean, in a lot of the reference here, there's a lot of these elements which do appear here and there, but I'm just sort of combining them in a way which I've seen once or twice, but not like a huge amount of times. But anyways, yeah, we're obviously going to be talking about posing, as I've alluded to there. But yeah, so as it stands, this shouldn't be too difficult because we've A, not got many colors, B, I don't have to draw a face, and C, something else. So yeah, largely speaking, posing is going to be difficult here. So we'll see what I can manage, because as I said, yeah, this is a difficult pose, and there's a lot going on. So without further ado, I will just begin, and then I'll show it to you. So yeah. So right, okay. So the first thing that'll probably catch your eye is the eyes. So this was a thing which I wasn't entirely sure about originally. I dropped my pen. This was a thing which I wasn't entirely sure about originally because in a lot of the reference I was seeing, it was a case of where you would sometimes see she just wouldn't have eyes on the mask at all. Sometimes they would be white eyes, and then sometimes, very rarely, once or twice, I saw the sort of stitched on sort of thing, the same with the mouth. So instead, so I don't actually think I'm going to be using the stitched on eyes. I think that's just sort of something there, which I think I'll just leave it without the sort of eye holes at all. Because that's just part of the design. I don't really understand how it works, but I'm not here to question things, I'm just here to draw it. But yeah, I'm not really sure how she actually sees or breathes out of the mask, but you know, who knows? It's a mystery for a lot of us. But yeah, I think I won't be including the eye holes here like this at all. I think it'll just be completely smooth along the side, and I might just add more detailing to the side of the head and stuff like that, because the head is actually kind of low on detail. I might also alter the shape of the stitched on mouth part. So yeah, now we're getting to the point where I was mentioning those little elements which I changed. So one of the things you see with her design a few different times, not inherently in her Batgirl design, but in her other primary designs. I don't know what the actual name of her other non-Batgirl alter ego is. I'm not terribly familiar. But in that design you typically see a lot of the sort of wrap around the arm, and you also see this type of cape of where it sort of wraps around the front and it connects around like here. So that's what I've done here. It's kind of hard to see because of the way that she's turned, but yeah, there's that of where it sort of, it's kind of it loops around the front completely, as opposed to it being connected via the shoulders as you would normally see with a bat cape. Another thing as well is that with the arm spikes, I think I'm going to need to alter the shape of them a little bit, because they're a little too flat. They're a little too, yeah, they don't have like any ridging to them really. They need a little bit more, sort of like a little bit more of a dip in like that for them to work. And then the belt is pretty simple. It's generally, she's got quite a thick belt. It's so I mostly sort of just stuck with the same belt that I give Batman in any of the more recent Batman drawings I've done. You can see that the way that I draw the belt, it's sort of the same thing here, except a little bit more crushed inwards, just so that it's a little bit thicker looking. The boots I made fairly simple, and then there's these little bits of design moving around through here. So again, it's the same thing that I do with Batman, of where I moved these little bits of these little seams along the sort of general frame of the body, just so that things sort of separate a little bit more. But I also here added these little seams along the top of the arms and along at the end of the thigh. Now I'm actually going to probably put another seam here, just so that this sort of separates more into separate elements. but regardless, the costume's still pretty much entirely going to be the one color. Still almost entirely going to be black, aside from those little yellow accents like the edges of the symbol and the belt. The inside of the cape will also be dark grey. The inside of the cape will be a different colour as well, because otherwise it'll be hard to see against the rest of her. Now, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the actual colour of this wire, the sort of grappling wire. That's another thing, I suppose, as part of the posing. We can start getting into this now, the posing elements, because I've sort of covered all the really redesign elements. Again, it's a fairly soft redesign. This is going to change. The eyes are obviously going to change. They're going to just be normal. Not just obviously the normal bat eyes, but they'll just be smoothed over, so that instead of just the sewn on thing. I'm not a fan of that here. But yeah, in terms of the grappling wire, this is a bit messy. So I might tidy this up a little bit, maybe add a little bit more looping to it. I might actually have it loop out like this, have it go in that direction, then loop back around, and then just squiggle out like that. Because the way that it's moving right now just sort of looks a little too haphazard, I think. It doesn't, well, it looks haphazard in an uninteresting way, is I think the way I'm trying to phrase this. So I think I need it to sort of maybe loop around more like this, sort of cover a bit more space, because it sort of, just sort of, yeah, like kind of wiggles out into this sort of kind of nothing around here. So I might have it swing out like that, into that direction, then come back around, and then sort of fling out into a tiny little ending. Because, yeah, I figured I wanted to do something which had a little bit more movement in it, something which filled the frame a little bit more. Because the background I'm probably going to go for here is probably going to be yellow. I'll probably just use pretty much flat color yellow for the background. I might add a tiny bit of a gradient, maybe. We'll see. But yeah, the background is predominantly going to be yellow, because that is obviously the accent color here, so it's not going to be occupying too much space, and I don't think any of the yellow of her costume will actually touch the yellow of the background, so that's fine. So yeah, I'm going to be changing the wire a little bit. I wanted to, yeah, as I said, I wanted to have a bit more motion going on, so the wire felt like a natural way of doing that, plus in a lot of the reference I was seeing, literally the first reference images I was seeing, had a lot of the sort of grappling going on with the yeah, like swinging on the grapple. And then I also wanted to do something which had a little bit more motion of the cape, because I feel like if you're gonna do something Batman adjacent, Batman related to any of the Bat family characters who have capes, it feels a little, it feels like I'd be missing the point to not use the cape in some way, so I decided to have the cape sort of flying out and coiling and all this stuff, so it looks a little more interesting. But I still wanted to keep everything in frame, more or less, so I just have these bits sort of touching the ends of the frame. If I may have, yeah, probably in the future, if I were to do another similar pose, because there is still some sort of proportional weirdness. You can even see with this leg, it's sort of not quite right. I made some adjustments before I started, just to be clear. And so I altered some proportional issues, because I felt like this is a problem with just sort of the utility belts and stuff like that, is that it makes the torso look kind of short, which obviously is the case here. Torso looks kind of short. So I think I'm going to maybe slim certain parts in a little bit more as I am doing the details, so that things don't look quite as short and stubby, because that's sort of the problem here, is that her torso looks a little bit short and stubby, and I think I just need to sort of slim things in a little bit more, and that'll make it look longer. And it's the same sort of deal with the legs. I think the legs are just maybe a little too thick. This leg is probably too short too as well, but there's not much I can do about that, really. I mean, there is something I can do about it. I could change it, but I think that would be a lot of work to change this leg as it stands. So yeah, I think I've sort of gone over everything I need to go over. Yeah, I've gone over the cape and the grappling wire. I've gone over the design elements that are different, which is to say not many. There's just these little seams here, here, and here on the sort of middle of the limbs, just to sort of separate things out. And it sort of, again, as I say, especially with the boots, it sort of gives it a nice little bit of a space between these lines which would otherwise connect these straight lines, the one from along the front of the leg and the one that goes to the front of the boot. I think those lines would otherwise sort of connect in a way which I wouldn't want, so this sort of separates them out, and then this obviously on the arm sort of separates things out there as well. So anyways, I think, with all that said, I will probably just start doing these details and then I'll be back to do the colours. But yeah, obviously all my posing stuff I talked about. Yeah. Well, I suppose one thing which I didn't mention is the ears. I made the ears a little longer than I think they would normally be, but that's just sort of how I do a lot of this Batman stuff, is I typically make the bat ears longer in a lot of cases. So yeah, anyways, I will do this and then I'll carry on. Alright, that is the details done. Realistically speaking, that's the hard part. So, as you may have seen, I basically reproportioned everything as I was going there. I trimmed everything in because I was looking at my reference images and I was basically like, okay, all of her proportions, from what I can see in pretty much everything that I'm looking at here, is she is typically very slim and kind of long. So I tried to reproportion things. Obviously can't change really the length unless I want to dramatically shrink the amount of space on the screen that she takes up, which I don't really want to do. I don't want to alter the amount of space that she takes up on the canvas. So I decided to just leave things, so she's still a little bit stubby, but I managed to slim things in a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I can just put on the base sketch of the background just so you can see. All these lines are significantly thicker around the edges here. And again, I brought things up, like I brought up the chest a little bit so that sort of, it all slims down a little bit. And again, it's the same thing with the legs were a little too thick. This foot, I think, is the central issue with why this leg looks weird to me, because I got this far, I didn't do the boot initially, just so that I could see, does it look weird? And it kinda doesn't. Or it doesn't, until the boot goes on. It's the position of the foot. The foot should be facing that way, not this way. That's the problem, but I can't change it really now. I even tried, I remember I tried this before I did the video. I literally just grabbed it with the lasso tool and I flipped it back and forth. It just didn't look right no matter which way I did it. So, it's just like this now. So I decided whenever I was drawing in the wire, obviously, which I just did, to have it loop around her, because I think that looks a little bit more interesting. Loop around her around the waist, and then kind of have a little knot in it there, and that sort of then loops back around behind the foot, so that it's got a little bit more sway to it, a little bit more motion. The color of the wire is going to change. It's not going to remain black. It'll remain black for a little while until I decide what color that'll be, because I obviously don't want it to be yellow, because then it'll blend into the background. I don't want it to be black, because then it still sort of conflicts with everything going on here. So I was like, okay, maybe you want it to be a shade of gray, but I don't know what that shade is, so I'll have to wait until I decide what color the inside of the cape is before I do that. The inside of the cape is going to be gray, I think. It's not going to be yellow. So there's going to be very little yellow. It's just going to be the edges of the symbol and the belt. That's all the yellow is. Then there'll be a little bit of beige or something like that, a lighter color for the wrap on the arms, and then pretty much everything here is going to be black. Even I think the inside, the edge of the cape, I think will be black, because actually astoundingly little of it is going to interact here, so I think I'm safe to make it black in that way. It's not going to interact too much. Same with the boots. There's no reason to change the color of those, or the gloves, or any of this stuff. There's no reason to change any of that stuff because it's not really going to interact in any way, so it's fine to have it be that way. I don't know, is there any other things I needed to mention? I altered the shape of the cape ever so slightly. I sort of changed the bend of certain parts, so this part tucks in more like that, so that it kind of loops around that way, so that sort of flows a little bit more naturally. Yeah, I think I'm obviously going to be making the background yellow. I'll do that right now, actually, just so that I can sort of figure out a shade for it. I'm going to make it quite a bright yellow because the background, this is going to be a warmer yellow on her. Yeah, it'll be a bit more of like a slightly warmer, maybe goldier yellow. So I might make it about there, so it's a pretty warm yellow, but I obviously don't want it to be too stark. Yeah, that's reasonably pleasant. Okay, then I'll find the yellow that I'm going to use, bring that down a little bit, bring it to about there, bring it to about here. That's the yellow that I'm going to use. Okay, so I can turn the background off for now because I'm not going to need it at the moment. I might do something, maybe some patterning or something on it, I don't know. I'll have a think about it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the background, really. I don't really just want to have it be the solid color, but you have to understand, I suppose, 90% of the frame here is going to be covered up by her, so adding stuff to the background might start just conflating things and make things a little bit too convoluted visually. So we'll see. I don't think I'm going to be leaving that totally alone. I might do something to it. I might add some like dots or something going on in the background just to give it a little bit more going on. I think the dots is an okay idea, just to give it like a little bit of a pattern moving up. I think that'll work. But that's something which will only take 5 minutes later anyway, so I mean that's not much of a problem. I'll just do that probably at the end of this section. So yeah, now is the colors, of which there is not many, but there's a lot of space to cover here, so it might still take a little while. Yeah, most of this is just going to be black. The inside of the cape will be grey. You know, I could probably use the same color on the cape as I do on the wrap on the arms. I could genuinely make it the exact same color, and I don't think that would pose much of an issue. Because it only really interacts here. I might not. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I really need to mention in terms of the proportioning. I altered the like seams slightly. I altered this one just to change the way that the seams flow. This one flows to the inside of the leg, which means actually I've just realized I made a boo-boo. This one flows through the inside of the leg, meaning it's supposed to go this way, like this. And that's the way that one flows. And then there's this one, which obviously goes around the outside like that, and then dips in towards the front, which is why it's there. So yeah, okay, that's fine now. That's fixed. Yeah, I obviously added all these little seams and everything to the inside of the cape, because that's just the nature of the bat cape. It does that. Yeah, no, I think I'm good to get on with these colors, and then I'll be back to do the painted shading, which again, I mean, that won't take too long either, but I'll have to be a little bit more careful about it because of just how much black there's going to be going on here. So I have to be careful because, again, whenever the majority of what I'm working with is a single color, I have to be more careful with how I manage that color. So yeah, anyways, I'll carry on. Okay, so that is our colors done. That did not take very long. To be honest, the hard part here was trying to decide on what color to make the wire. I settled on like a grey-brown color because it stands out from the blue-grey that is the inside of the cape, and it's dark enough to stand out against the background, but not blend into the core black color. So yeah, it was a bit of a pain to do that, to be honest. And then figuring out what to do with the background was also a little bit of a pain. But I managed to just screwed around with the dots. I kind of just mixed a bunch of different dot brushes on top of each other, and that sort of gives it this sort of obviously thin to thick sort of thing going on. What I might do, I might do that. Is I might just get an eraser and then just run over some of this stuff and just sort of erase a little bit of, maybe not quite that much, erase a few of the edge ones out like that, just so that it has like thick to thin to gone around the edges. I think that maybe might look a little better. Just do something like that very kind of haphazardly. I don't need to be too picky about it. I think it's good to just give it a bit of a go. Now, let's have a look. Bam, 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 bam. Does that look better with or without? I think I actually prefer it this way. I think I prefer the way it was before. Well, at least I didn't waste any time doing that. But yeah, anyways, now it is time for the painted shading, which I should think won't take very long. But yeah, I should think that'll be reasonably quick. Yeah, I kept having a bit of a problem. I mean, on screen now that I'm looking at it, this yellow actually looks a little more orange. I don't know if it's just the way that my screen washes these things out. Because my screen doesn't like certain colors. My screen doesn't like blue, and I don't think it likes yellow either. But I don't use yellow very often, so it's not the type of thing I would have realized up until right now. Where, yeah, I'm pretty sure it does not like yellow. So, yeah. In theory, what you'll be seeing will be more in keeping with what I'm seeing on the tablet, but who knows? You might be seeing the background kind of blending together a little bit, but that isn't happening on the tablet, so that's just really weird. yeah, anyways, I will do this, and then I'll be back for the detailed shading and the light line, and then that'll be us. Was there something else I was going to say there? Yeah, no, just, yeah, the sort of background kind of blends together on the screen, but here it's fine. I was having a bit of an issue whenever it came to the color with the dots as well. The dots, I kept kind of making them brown by accident, even though I just wanted them to be a little bit darker than the background, not like blend in, but to be a little just sort of like the background color. Around the same area. Anyways, enough dawdling. I'm going to carry on, and then I'll be back to do the detailed shading and the light line, and then that'll be us. So yeah. Okay, that's the painted shading done. Didn't take very long. So now it is time for the detailed shading and the light line, which is, of course, the end. Then it's just the gradient maps, which I'll do at the end, and I'll do the textures and all that stuff. So yeah, I decided, so obviously my two colors here were the purple and the yellow, because that obviously, I mean, that's normally what I do, but that also sort of doesn't make sense here. Based on the colors of the character, within reason. So I felt like I had ended up making the black a little too kind of yellowy around the edges, so I decided to go back in with this sort of lighter blue and then sort of touch that up a little bit around the area, and I think that looks better. It still looks very messy, but I think it looks a little better anyways. Yeah, I think that's definitely a better look, but yeah, so now I've got to go in and do detailed shading, and I think that'll polish things up nicely. Because yeah, I think that lighter blue shading actually does look a little too much like the background, or not the background, the inside of the cape. It's a little too close to that, I think. So the detailed shading should do a good bit to mask that, because it'll darken up the cape quite a bit, because it is somewhat obscuring the wire now. Because it's a lot harder to see against it now. So hopefully once this becomes a lot darker, that will become easier to see it again. Because that was something which I didn't foresee happening, but we'll see. I might need to change the color of the wire again, we'll see what happens. But anyways, I'll do this detailed shading, and I'll do the light line, and I'll be back to wrap up. So yeah. Alrighty, that is basically us done. That's our detailed shading and our light line done. I decided not to apply the light line to the cape, even though... so the reason why I decided not to is because I had a little peep at my Batman, and my Batman from a few months ago, and I didn't apply any light line to that cape either, and I typically don't to the capes. I normally apply it to the edge of the cape, maybe that's it. If there was like a lip like this on this side, I would probably do it there, but since there isn't, I'm not going to. Even though this cape is more detailed than the one I gave Batman. Batman, I just gave it a flat color basically. I didn't really do anything with it. So yeah, I decided to just be easier to just not shade it. Well, it's obviously easier, but I think I prefer not shading it as well. Just I don't think it's necessary. So yeah, right, okay, now it's time for the gradient maps. As soon as I can find the layer, there we go. Okay, So what am I going to do with colors on this? So our darkest is actually our character colors. So tell you what I'll do here. Our character colors should probably be maybe bluey or purple. Put it down here. Blue it up a slight bit. And then our lightest should be yellow. Maybe make it a little bit warmer than that. And quite far over, I think. Right, we definitely don't want it to be that in terms of our midtones. Make it a slightly pinky red, I think. I think that'd look nice. I think that'd look nice. This is definitely a sunsettier tone that we're going for here. But it's a little bit more of a weird sunset because our blue, or our darkest, is definitely, it's very much a blue purple. And then this is pinky, and that's yellow. I think 3 tones is fine for this. It's definitely, I'd say, this is like a thermal color palette. Well, that definitely pops. Okay, alright. That's something, alright, that's a bit different. Let's try that. Let's bring that down to 60%. I don't want it to be too crazy. Yeah, that definitely makes it very purple. Right, okay, let's get some duplication going here, make that luminosity. I'm gonna try and be a little bit softer on the darker tones because I don't want the face is the part which will start getting really darkened, and I don't want it to. This was the thing, I should mention that actually, is with the light line. I sort of added some creasing here, which obviously there wasn't originally any creasing around the eyes, but I added it with the light line, just so that there's some more definition around the eyes, so that it looks a little bit more interesting than it was. So I think that looks a little bit better. Alright, let's make another duplicate, and this one should be a color burn, and this one should be 5%. Turn that off for a second, and that's the luminosity, should be there, should be here. Our colors come out more here. I want our colors to come out more. And yeah, okay, that isn't too dark. It's starting to look very dark here, but I think it's probably fine. The texture might help. I'm hoping the texture helps. Our light line isn't like super pronounced here. It's pretty mild as our light lines go. I decided not to go too crazy with it. I thought maybe I should make it a little thicker in certain areas, but no, I think it's fine to keep it as like somewhat subtle. Speaking of somewhat subtle, I'll probably want this texture to be somewhat subtle so that it doesn't like blow out the background too much, because this texture for some reason is very aggressive on yellow. It's very aggressive on certain colors. I'm gonna leave it at, I think 20% will probably work. 20% will probably work. It's still visible on the background. You can also see how messy the dots are on the background. But it's the type of thing you won't really pay much attention to because of these sort of like weird half dots because of the way the brush moves. It didn't really do much on her, did it? It did, well, brighten things up, I suppose. Right, okay, yeah, that works. Alright, that works. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm reasonably happy with that. This one was not too hard to get. I suppose you sort of see the difference that not really having to draw a face does. I didn't have to draw a face really at all, and not just in the sort of like Batman sense of not really having to draw a face. Like most of this isn't super detailed, but here is detailed still within reason. So that's enough to make it take a little while. But here there's like no face to really speak of at all. So it made things that little bit easier. I mean, it only really shaved half an hour off our time, so this is a reasonably quick one as things go with 3.5 hours. It still took most of the day because I took a lot of breaks because it is very, very warm in here, so you know, it is the summer. Anyways, yeah, reasonably happy with that. Again, as I mentioned at the start, this is a very like subtle alteration to the design. I've seen a few versions of this design in the reference images I was looking at here. There's a few designs which are similar to this one but not exactly the same. They maybe have a slightly different sort of thing going on with the bandaging on the arms or with the belt or something like that, or the cape. I think is one of the bigger disparities here. Is one of the bigger differences is the cape. But yeah, it's just the way that it connects around the front, because normally with her cape it sort of connects in a sort of invisible way. It sort of connects into the rest of the design. It sort of like blends in, and I'm not really sure where the connecting is supposed to be, because there's no visible like cowl piece on her costume. So this is the thing. So yeah. Anyways. I think that is good. I think I'm happy with this. I'm happy to leave it here. The wire does sort of blend still, I think, a little bit too much into the cape, but I don't think I'm too willing to change it now. I'm a little too tired to do that now at this rate, because there's a lot of tinkering that I have to do to sort of make that work, especially with the gradient maps and things like that. It's gonna conflict and it's gonna take some time. So I think I'm just content to leave this as is, because that is the thing that you need to do sometimes. You just need to say, okay, I am done. I think I'm happy with this. I think it's done. It's difficult, but you've got to say it sometimes. You can't just sit there and tinker with it all day and night. You have to say it's done at some point. And I'm happy to say it's done at this point. So yeah, with all that said, I will say my outro and I'll leave you. So if you like the video, do whatever it is that you'd normally do, whether that be liking or not. I would of course prefer if you liked it, but I can't make you do that, so I'm just going to suggest it instead. You could do that. I would of course prefer if you did. I just repeated that entirely. Weird. Same deal, if you want to subscribe, you could do that. I would like it, but you don't have to. You know where the subscribe button is. You can hit it, you can smash it, you can do whatever it is that you would normally do with said button that is located beneath the video. And if you've got a suggestion for a character you'd like to see me draw in the future, you could leave a comment. I'd like you to do so, but politely. Be polite. Don't do it if you're not going to be polite. If you can't say it nicely, don't say it at all. In this instance, that's true. But yeah, anyways. And yeah, if you choose to watch the next video, I'll see you next time. So with all that said, that is us. So I'll say goodbye and I'll leave you. So, bye-bye.